This week's 2 new episodes of Has Been Hotel were great, with the first episode having Vox coming to the hotel from Charlie's invitation to try and spread the news that Serpentius got into heaven. But with the second episode, we got something fans have been waiting for since the series first premiered, the origins of Alastor, as well as the identity of the person he made a soul deal with. So today, we're going to talk about that and where it sets Alastor up for the rest of the series. My name is Deepcut, welcome back to Cartoon Universe, and let's break down one of my favorite episodes of the entire show. Now, Alastor is a fan favorite character from before the pilot even aired, with a lot of fans dying to know what his life was like on Earth, how he ended up in Hell, and how he became so powerful. Even with the origin of Alastor playing out on screen in episode 4, we already knew most of these details from early live streams, with the only big reveal being how Alastor met Rosie himself. And more interestingly, how she made a deal with Alastor so she would own his soul. Now, from those early live streams, we already knew that Alastor lived and died in New Orleans, where he was raised by a single black mother, and had an absent white father. Growing up, he was said to have a tough childhood because of his mixed lineage, but still managed to break into radio, where voice was more important than how you looked. Now, the show didn't really dive into it, but there's an implication in the episode that Alastor had to work really hard to impress people in a more racist time. And in part, this is where some of his hatred towards others seems to have come from. Early on, Vivziepop explained that Alastor didn't turn his violence on women or people he felt were innocent. He tends to see men as active players in the game of life, or later hell, with women generally being seen as good company. This doesn't mean Alastor can't respect women, and as we see, he's the pet to Rosie and treats Rosie more like someone who chose to enter this sort of game herself, instead of one of the more natural players like the other men are. In the prequel comic that came out before the show, we saw Alastor kill and eat other demons who dare to harm smaller or more innocent demons because of how unfair he saw it. Likely seeing the suffering that he and his own mother went through on Earth at the hands of others with more power. This all gives us a very complex portrait of a man who died in the year 1933, who grew up in a racially charged time, but also had a strong affection towards the strong women in his life like his mother, who taught him to be the man that he is, while resenting the other men around him who he saw as oppressive to women like his mother and even men like himself. Because of this, in life, Alastor developed a taste not just for killing people, but apparently eating them. While he worked his way up to become a famous radio broadcast voice with his transatlantic accent, he was also targeting people he saw as heinous or even who just pissed him off personally. This reflects the version of him we see in Hell, where he is more concerned about the act he puts on than who he truly is. He is supposed to be perfectly composed, but after the pilot, it feels like the show is more about how not composed he really is, and how much he hides all that behind a facade of casual carelessness while aiming to get his revenge on people. In one shot, for instance, we see a man spill some wine on Alastor, and Alastor can't help but kill him because of it. Because of his suit and the location, it's implied to be a man who is powerful in the industries, maybe even radio, and thus someone who also stood in the way of Alastor symbolically. But it all comes down to these personal moments when he decides to kill him. The spilling of wine on Alastor is treated not much differently than the way Alastor treated Serpentius, simply for getting a piece of his coat ripped off, which set Alastor off with real anger it seems, and made him go straight to destructive mode while trying to look calm. Finally, after years of killing people, Alastor also found a way to connect with Hell through dark rituals. This is something that didn't just require the murder of people as we see in the scene, but probably the eating of their flesh, as Alastor ended up getting in contact with Rosie, who of course is the leader of the cannibals. It's implied that eating human flesh may have had an effect on Alastor over time, which is also the claim of the fabled creature, the wendigo. This is a figure from American folktales that was claimed to have once been human, but turned into this great monster after resorting to cannibalism. The Wendigo can be depicted in many different ways, but a lot of art on the internet for modern depictions of the Wendigo show them as having antlers. It's because of this that when Alastor is later disposing of a body and ends up getting shot, his silhouette takes the form of a Wendigo with these tree branches made to look like antlers, with Rosie explaining that the person who shot him mistook him for a deer. And Alastor's full demon mode that we see in the comics and even in the show also includes these antlers to make him look more like the Wendigo. All of this indicates, to me at least, that it's not just one-time eating flesh that would make this sort of ritual work, but that Alastor had been slowly changing himself with each kill and cannibalization until that connection became more naturally possible. And this makes sense. Right now, we know demons generally enter Hell with a standard power level and slowly rise through the ranks with soul deals, but certain figures are shown to enter Hell with a bit more power. Rosie very specifically says when Alastor first contacts her that she hasn't quite seen a soul like this in all of her time. And it would make sense that killing someone and perhaps consuming their flesh somehow gave you some of the power that their soul would have in Hell. Now, when Alastor contacted Hell, it was because he knew he would be sent there for the murders he committed, and he wanted to try and find a way to guarantee that he can keep being a creep instead of one of the many victims that the religions describe going there. What's important here is that Alastor already had some potential power. Rosie may be the most powerful figure in some hierarchy in Hell for a reason that hasn't been explained yet, even just by the merit of having the most soul deals going on. But she says she was only able to raise Alastor to be the strongest sinner. And it seems that this was only in part because Alastor was already so powerful, and that she couldn't elevate just any other sinner to this level without that base. And this is how Alastor became the puppet to Rosie, who very mysteriously wants Alastor at the Has-Been Hotel suddenly. Before that, Alastor had apparently sang the praises to Rosie's causes over the radio for her, but elsewise had been free to run around Hell acting like the most powerful overlord without ever having to make soul deals the way everyone else did. That didn't stop him from making some soul deals, of course, getting Husk and Nifty under his control, but it wasn't for more power, just for more control over certain people, it would seem. Now, the reveal that Rosie is the one Alastor made a soul deal with actually makes a lot of sense looking back, and with Rosie being the one trying to manipulate the Has-Been Hotel, it suddenly makes a lot of sense why the other cannibals would so casually join Charlie's cause, even beyond the promise of angel meat. Rosie even seems to be responsible for Alastor's death on Earth, as when she talks about making the soul deal with Alastor, she explains that he died the very next day, being mistaken as a deer while trying to hide a body. It seems after making the deal, Rosie wanted to cash in on this, so had it arranged for Alastor to die so that he can begin working for her as soon as possible. The problem now, at least for Alastor, is that Rosie had made Alastor go off the air for 7 years after his last fight with Vox, and only had him resurface now to work at the Has-Been Hotel, which led to him nearly dying in a battle against Adam. Alastor saw this as Rosie not fulfilling her part of the deal, but as Rosie said, being the most powerful sinner in Hell doesn't make you strong enough to defeat an archangel, even though Nifty was able to do it with a simple angelic weapon when he wasn't looking. And unfortunately, the battle with the Archangel left him pretty wounded. Because of this, Alastor can't just leave his soul deal with Rosie and maintain his existing power, but even within that deal, he's still in a weakened state because of the injury that Adam gave him. So as per usual, when it comes to taking care of the problem of Vox, Alastor's only option seems to be to try and trick people. To make it look real, Alastor initiated a big battle against Vox, who ended up bringing in the other Vees, Valentino and Velvet, which inevitably led to Husk and Nifty coming to Alastor's aid. This is one of my favorite battles in the entire series so far, and it's really fun to see Alastor and his team of 3 go against Vox and his team of 3. But of course, this was all a ploy, so once Nifty and Husk are in danger, Alastor offers Vox to make a deal and basically become his faithful servant, giving Vox control over the radio as well as control over the other mediums that he already has. This was all done with the condition to not hurt Husk, Nifty, and most importantly, Charlie. And with the entire season's conflict being a build-up to a battle between Charlie and Vox, even if just political and not physical, I have to imagine that this is going to go horribly wrong for Vox in the big finale. But what do you guys think? Will Alastor really be able to accomplish his goal, or do you think Vox is going to end up being victorious? Just kidding, I know that's probably not going to happen. But if you think so, let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe because we have a lot of Has-Been Hotel videos coming out, not just this week, but the entire month. And if you want early access to those, you can join us here on our YouTube memberships and on our Patreon. Every Wednesday when the new episodes of Has-Been Hotel airs, I upload all of my ideas for videos in audio format in one giant upload for members only. So if you sign up there and pay our $5 a month, you'll get early access to that. But don't worry, each of those individual videos will still be coming out one day at a time every week. And if you really want more esoteric lore, don't forget in our membership program, we also give early access to our Big Atlantis 2 video, where I break down all of the different mythologies talked about in that sequel, as well as my esoteric breakdown of Magical Girl Madoka. Links as always are in the pinned comment down below, and I'll see you guys next time.